to seek justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with you, O Lord our God, all our days. Amen. Please be seated. For those of you who couldn't be here to join us last week, I want to bring you up to speed real quick. We started on a little bit of a journey this season of Easter, where for all of the Sundays we have, when we're gathering for Easter, we're celebrating the resurrection, and we all go, yay, we're saved, resurrection! And now we're asking ourselves, how exactly is it that we're saved because of the resurrection? So last week we looked at one of the ways in which we're saved because of the resurrection. Today we're going to look at a different one of those ways, and so on, while we explore this together. Today what I want to talk about is Jesus assuring us in the resurrection that death is not something that we have to fear, because Jesus shows us in the resurrection that he gets the last word, and that he is in control. Now, I want to start by talking about President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Some of you may remember him well. I remember him quite well. Franklin Roosevelt, great president. And I remember gathering for his fireside chats. Anybody else remember gathering for his fireside? Anybody else remember gathering for his fireside chats? See, President Roosevelt had a bit of a problem. We were about to enter into World War II. People were terrified of this tremendous war, as it could have possibly been even bigger, even more terrifying than the last World War. People didn't know what to think. And President Roosevelt didn't want people to panic. But more than not panicking, he didn't want people to despair. He didn't want people to lose hope. And so he had these fireside chats. I see a few of you said, no, fireside chats. And he did two important things. Scholars look back today and say two important things happened in those fireside chats. The first was that he was very honest about the danger and about how serious the situation was. And he was very upfront with people about how serious it was. The second thing he did was he assured people that it was all under control, and that he was there managing things so we didn't have to worry. People didn't lose hope. People didn't panic. We as the American people, survived, got through, and it was because of that, those two things. And when I hear those two things, I think a lot about what Jesus did in the resurrection. When Jesus looked at the Christian people who were afraid, they didn't know what the future held in store for them. And Jesus doesn't want us to panic. But more important than not panicking, he doesn't want us to lose hope. He doesn't want us to despair. Especially in the face of something like our deaths, our mortal lives ending. And so Jesus assures us of two things. The first is that this is very serious and very real. And our mortal lives are something to take seriously. But the second is that he has it under control. And that Jesus is in charge. You see, when it comes to Jesus in the resurrection, he assures us that death does not get the last word. Death never gets the last word. He assures us, in the case of Lazarus, you all know the story of Lazarus. What we often don't talk about is how Jesus could have prevented Lazarus from dying if he had chosen to. He didn't. If he could raise Lazarus from the dead, he could have stopped Lazarus from dying, but he didn't. Lazarus died. And then Jesus went to his tomb and he wept. Now, even though Jesus knew that in just a minute he was about to raise him back to life again, he still wept. He still cried about it. Showing us that it's okay for us to know that in our mortal lives, that our death can be sad. It can be troubling. It can be something we struggle with, even though we know Jesus has it under control. That's okay. We see it happen again with Tabitha. when she dies, and she's brought back. And another thing that we don't frequently talk about is that Jesus did not save Tabitha or Lazarus from death. Right? He didn't. They both died again. Right? They're not still walking around. Right? So Lazarus did eventually die again. We don't talk about how that, because I think it's important for us to remember that Jesus was not saving us from death as if it was something to be prevented or something to run away from, but Jesus was assuring us that it's not the end of the story. It's not the last chapter. It's just a chapter in the story. As if to put a final point on that, in the resurrection, Jesus himself dies. And again, could have prevented his death. Could have chose not to die, but didn't. Jesus showed us that he would die too, and showed us that his death is not the end of the story, because he gets the last word. Always gets the last word. So when I see Jesus talking to us, this is reassuring in the resurrection. It sounds to me very much like Franklin Roosevelt gathering at those fireside chats and having people who were struggling with something very real, very serious to us, and to hear the words of our Messiah saying to us, this is serious, and I know you're afraid, and it's okay. But the other thing I want you to remember is that I have this under control. I've shown you I have this under control. And so when we give thanks this Easter, when we give thanks this season for the resurrection, one of the ways that we can be thankful that we're saved is that we are saved because we are shown that our Savior is the one who's in charge. And that when it comes to death, Jesus always gets the last word. Thanks be to God.